Hello, my name is Kenry. I am a student of English literature, and this is my story. I want to share my life in London with you. I also want to tell you about my amazing teacher. You can read my story and learn English with me. It's a beautiful summer day. I'm traveling on a train. Two women are sitting across from me. They're speaking English, but I don't understand much. I'm studying English, but I'm still a beginner. I don't know many words, but I decided to speak to the women anyway. I said a few simple sentences in basic English. They understood me, and that made me very happy. I told them that I want to learn English. They told me they were from England and were returning home from a conference. We spoke for about 10 minutes. Soon, we reached my station. I said goodbye, and they gave me their phone number and address. They said I could visit them in England. After that meeting, I became very motivated and worked on my English every day. I started translating texts and watching films in English. After 6 months, my English had improved. It was better, but I still wanted to learn more. So I went to London to study English there. Once in London, I joined a school. My first class was on Monday. I met my teacher and the other students. My teacher was a young, kind woman, very humble and nice. We introduced ourselves and began the lesson. She asked us some questions to check our general knowledge of English. She explained that she had a very effective method for learning. It was simple. She told us we didn't need to study textbooks. Instead, we had to use English as much as possible in our daily lives. That sounded great to me. I never liked textbooks because they confused me. Then we talked about what matters most when learning a new language. Our teacher said that language is a tool for communication. We use it to share our thoughts and feelings. So, the best way to learn a language is to actually use it to communicate with others. That's exactly what we were going to do in the course. Speak and use English often. Many students just try to memorize vocabulary and grammar rules, but they don't actually use English to speak. There's a big difference. Of course, learning words and grammar is important, but you need to practice them daily, not just study them. In our course, the teacher wanted to show us a simple and effective way to learn vocabulary and grammar. I really liked what she said. The lesson continued, and we talked about our hobbies and what we enjoy doing. We spoke in pairs and also with the teacher. I enjoyed the class very much. I was really happy. This learning method worked well for me. I returned to school on Tuesday. That day, one of the students asked an interesting question. She wanted to know the best way to learn new words. Our teacher replied that there are many ways, but statistically, the most effective one is reading. When people read, they learn new words much faster, about twice as fast as those who don't read. She recommended reading for at least 30 minutes each day. She also explained how to get the most benefit from reading. First, choose books or texts that interest you. It should be something you enjoy, fiction or nonfiction, as long as it grabs your attention. Don't read something boring or too difficult. If you come across a word you don't understand, use a dictionary. Look up the word, understand its meaning, and continue reading. This will improve your understanding, and you'll remember the word better. You don't need to write the word down. If the text is interesting, your brain will remember the word naturally. Every time you meet a new word, repeat this process. Reading also helps in another way. You don't just learn new words. You learn how those words are used in sentences. You see how words are connected, and that helps improve your grammar and sentence structure too. This method is very effective. Try it, and you'll be surprised at how fast you learn. Later, we talked about life in England and jobs that are suitable for students. This was very useful for me because I wanted to find a part-time job. I asked the other students if they knew where I could look for one. They told me about the job center, which offers many jobs for students. That was great news. After class, I went to the job center. I wasn't sure what kind of job I could do, so I asked the lady there for advice. She told me that there were a few good options. She said I could work as a cleaner or as a waitress in a cafe. I explained that I didn't have any experience. She told me my English was good enough to work in the cafe and the training wouldn't be difficult. Plus, I'd get more chances to practice speaking English there than working as a cleaner. She said I could start on Thursday. I was so happy to have a job where I could use English and improve even more. Remember, reading for 30 minutes every day is one of the best ways to learn new words. On Wednesday, I returned to school. One student in our class was quieter than the rest. He was from South Korea. When our teacher asked if anyone had questions, he raised his hand. He said he had a big problem with pronunciation. He knew his pronunciation wasn't good, and he didn't know how to improve it. He said he didn't speak much because he was afraid others would hear his mistakes. Still, he read and watched movies in English and understood well. He just wanted to speak better. He asked the teacher for advice. She said, "Okay, I'll tell you something about pronunciation and how to practice it." Then she said she would teach us all some techniques to improve our pronunciation. First, she explained why students often struggle with pronunciation. When we speak, we have to move our mouths in new ways. We have to use the muscles in our mouth when we speak. Everyone does that. The problem is, when you speak English, you often use your mouth muscles the same way you use them in your native language. This can cause your pronunciation to sound different from that of native speakers. Many English learners experience this. Almost everyone has a slightly different pronunciation than what they should ideally have. But this isn't a big issue. People can usually understand what you're trying to say, even if your pronunciation isn't perfect. Still, you can improve your pronunciation by using a very effective technique called shadowing. Shadowing is a simple method. You just copy the sounds you hear. It's how children learn their first language. They copy their parents again and again, and eventually their pronunciation becomes perfect. You can learn English pronunciation in the same way. Start with videos or audio recordings that are not too fast and are easy for you to understand. Listen carefully and try to repeat exactly what you hear at the same time as you hear it. That's all. One day, our teacher went to YouTube and searched for the shadowing technique. She found some great videos where this technique was clearly explained. We watched one, and then we all practiced shadowing for about 3 minutes. Afterwards, our teacher told us that shadowing is also useful when you're preparing for a presentation in English and want your pronunciation to be clear. Before your presentation, go somewhere quiet and practice shadowing for about 10 minutes. You'll notice how much it improves your pronunciation during your speech. I found this very interesting because I had never heard of this technique before. When the lesson ended, I went to the school reception to ask if there were any sports activities available. I wanted to stay active while in England. The receptionist told me there was a table tennis team and a football team. The football team had training that day at 5 o'clock. I was really happy because playing sports is very important in my life. I went to the football training and met players from many different countries: Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. I enjoyed the training session and felt really good about how my time in England was starting. I had a great teacher and now some new friends from the football team. Also, tomorrow I was going to start my new job. When you want to improve your pronunciation, repeat after native speakers. On Thursday, I went back to school. We had a new student in class. Her name was Elizabeth, and she was from Italy. At the beginning of the lesson, our teacher asked her a few questions. She already knew Elizabeth because she had attended a summer course for beginners at the same school 1 year ago. It was just a 2-week course. When Elizabeth spoke, her pronunciation was beautiful and very fluent. Our teacher was impressed and said, "Your school in Italy must be very good." But Elizabeth replied, "I don't go to any school. I study at home. I use the techniques you taught me. I do a lot of reading, shadowing, and thinking aloud. I try to think in English more than in Italian. That's how I improve my English. The 2 weeks I spent in your class last summer helped me a lot. You showed me the way, and now I know how to study English every day. That's why I wanted to join your class again. A year ago, I was a beginner. Now I can speak English." Our teacher was very happy to hear this and praised Elizabeth for her dedication and hard work. I also found it very inspiring. I already knew about reading and shadowing, but Elizabeth also mentioned something new: thinking aloud. I didn't know what that was, so I asked our teacher about it. She explained that thinking aloud is a powerful technique, but you need strong motivation to benefit from it. Some people might even think it's a little strange, but it works. When you think aloud, your English can improve very quickly. I told the teacher I was very motivated and didn't mind if the technique seemed a bit crazy. If it helps, I wanted to learn it. She agreed and explained that it's actually very simple. Normally, we think in our native language all day, but now we can try thinking in English. When you do that, you can start saying your thoughts out loud. That's it. I said, "It's so simple. Why is it so effective?" The teacher replied, "Maybe you should ask Elizabeth. She uses this method and can tell you more." Then the teacher asked Elizabeth if she'd like to share her experience with thinking aloud. Elizabeth said it wasn't easy at first. She began with very simple sentences like, "I can speak English. It is good that I can speak English. And I want to be better." She told herself she needed to practice every day. She didn't know many words, but she used what she had. She said things like, "I don't know many words, but I can say my ideas with these words. I can do this." These sentences were very basic, but they helped. At the beginning, one of the hardest parts was that her thoughts in Italian were long and complex, and she couldn't express them clearly in English. So she had to simplify her thinking to match her English ability. That was the most difficult part. But after some time, it became natural for her to think in English. Then something amazing happened. She met a man from Australia who was visiting Italy. Although she was still a beginner, they started talking, and she found that she could communicate without much trouble. Her sentences were simple and short, but she didn't have to translate in her head from Italian to English. After that meeting, she started using thinking aloud even more. It really helped her speaking skills, and she still uses it every day. She said it's a very effective method. Our teacher thanked Elizabeth for sharing her story. I wanted to try this technique too, because I also wanted to get better at speaking. If you want to speak English fluently, think aloud. Let me give you one final tip. When learning English, remember to read, listen, think, and speak. Do each of these activities for 40 minutes every day. You can read and listen and also practice shadowing using our basic English stories.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Before we go, let me leave you with this. Learning English isn't just about memorizing words or grammar rules. It's about connecting with people, just like Sarah did on her trip. So keep practicing, stay curious, and most importantly, enjoy the journey. See you in the next video.